Hey guys, I wanted to record a quick video for you guys on the applied activity for chapter number 7, which has you working on self-determination theory, which is something that we covered. And let me pull that. So here's, I'm sorry, not chapter 7, chapter 9. Chapter 7 is about Erickson, my bad. Self-determination applied activity. What you'll need to do for this applied activity. Some students have kind of started to work on some of it, and it's a little complex, or they're finding it a little complex, and it can get a little tricky. So that's why I'm making this video for you. First half of the applied activity just kind of wants you to go through the self-determination theory website and tell me about self-determination theory. Talk to me about some of the theories of motivation and stuff like that. So that part, this first whole kind of chunk right up here, this is pretty okay. This part is where things get a little tricky, and you're going to need to proceed through this carefully and not just kind of pick questionnaires willy-nilly if you want to make this easy on yourself. So here's the deal with the questionnaires. The first thing you're going to do, go to the questionnaires page, right? Awesome. And then one thing you'll have to do is provide some login information for the website. I provided and set myself up with a registration account at the beginning of the semester when I did this, and I haven't gotten any like crazy spammy emails or anything, so you're basically like safe to do this. And that's basically because a lot of these questionnaires are used for academic research, so they kind of want to keep tabs on who has access to them, but you'll be okay. Nothing bad will happen if you give them your information. So you register, you come to this questionnaires page, and the assignment wants you to choose 3 surveys that are available and complete them. So first step to this, go down the questionnaires and pick the ones that look interesting to you. And then you can read the little blurb about it, and if you click on the name of the survey, it will actually give you some more information too. Like here's a college student scale. So obviously for this one, you probably wouldn't fill out the child scale because y'all aren't children, you're college students, so you can kind of read about exactly what you're getting yourself into. Another important thing to note when you're picking your questionnaires, obviously you want something that is interesting to you, or that you feel like you would like to measure yourself on. But when you click on the scales, they'll download. If you have a MacBook, they'll enter into your little download section, and you can open up the PDF. And all of these questionnaires are basically the same. In that they'll give you some kind of description of what's going on with the scale. Most of this or some of this might not make sense because it's basically talking about the psychometric properties of the scale, which you don't have to worry about. Here's what you need to know. For all of these questionnaires, not only, so for this one, are you taking the measure? So on this scale, you will answer all of these questions, and your answers will get a number value, but once you get to the end of the scale, and not all scales are this long, FYI, once you get to the end of the scale, you now have to score your performance on this measure. And all of these surveys will tell you how to do that. And so for the one that we were working on, you take everything, you assign your items their number value, right? So here's the following scale to answer each of the 3 questions about each life goal. So you go through, you answer all of these, you give them a score on 1 to 7, depending on how much you feel like that thing, like to be a wealthy person, is important to you, and you answer it, and you continue on the whole scale like that. Once you have your answers completed and you have your numbers, you get to the scoring information. And this tells you that to score the scales, you need to calculate the subscale scores for each of the several aspiration categories, and then you do that by averaging the responses. And this is where you need to kind of slow down and see what it's asking you. For here, in order to find out about your wealth, how you perceive wealth, how important, right here, how important you perceive wealth. You take your scores from each one of these questions, you tally them up, and you average the items. So let's say you score a 2, a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 2, because I'm bad at basic math and that's just what my brain can work with. You'll end up with a total score for importance on wealth of 10. You average that, divide it by 5, so your average score is a 2. Okay? You would go down and do that for all of these. What is your score for question number 2? What's your score for question 23? What's your score for question 44, 65, 86? Total that up. Average it out among these 5 items. Okay? And we'll do this with a couple of them so you have more examples. And you go down the whole way. This particular measure is super long, so I wouldn't recommend you do this just because it's hella long. But sometimes there might be other more broad categories. The intrinsic aspiration factor, in which case you just kind of add up the personal growth, relationships, and community stuff, and you average those. And so sometimes there are little broader categories too. Sometimes it kind of just stays here. And if you have the option of working within smaller categories or broad categories, I'll accept answers for either. Honestly, I won't make you do all of it. But, so that's kind of how you go about calculating that. Now, let's say you score all of your important scores for wealth and you score a 2. Okay, so for importance, you scored a 2. Well, one of the things I ask you guys to do later on in the assignment is to ask me about your outcome. Was your score low, medium, high? Did you expect it? You know, what do you make of it, basically? And right off the bat, having an important score of 2 might not mean anything to you, because you're like, well, 2 out of what? What the hell does that mean? So you also, for this assignment, have to calculate what the lowest possible score would be and the highest possible score would be, okay? And this is really easy, okay? I promise. Just trust me on this. Any survey where you're averaging information, okay, the highest score and the lowest score possible for that subscale will be this. Here's the range of your average answers, right? Because those subscales had 5 questions. So you're averaging your response, you're dividing by 5. If you answer 1, not at all, this end anchor for all of those items, you will get 5. If you divide that by 5, you will get 1, okay? Let's say for all of those 5 questions, the highest possible score is a 7, right? It's at the opposite end. You answer all of those questions as a 7. 7 times 5 is what? 35. You take 35, you divide it by 5, because there are 5 questions, you average it, and you get 7. So when these subscales, or when these scoring steps are asking you to average responses, the highest score possible will be the highest answer number possible, and the lowest score possible will be the lowest answer number possible, okay? So, in that hypothetical situation where I went and did wealth and I scored 2 on everything, I divided it by 5 and got 2, right? Here's where my average lies. So, for each survey, what was your outcome? On this aspirations scale, my importance on achieving wealth was a 2 out of 7, or 2 on a scale of 1 to 7, kind of however you want to word it. This is considered pretty low, because for all of these scales, the higher the number, the higher you are on whatever that thing is, okay? So in this case, the higher the number, the more important that thing is to you, okay? So what was your outcome? It was a 2 on a scale of 1 to 7 for just that first piece, okay? The importance of wealth. What does it say about your motivation or development? Well, it says that I'm not driven by wealth, which, and I'm just kind of pulling this out of my butt, and you can interpret this however you want. Being low on this importance for wealth piece might be good because there are more important things in life than money. However, wealth and money often drive people to achieve great things. So, what does the result say about you? I don't know. What do you make of your score? What do you feel like it says about you? Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when I want to know for each survey what was your outcome and then what that result says about your motivation for development. Okay? When you go to pick your surveys, be careful, okay? Don't just pick this aspiration one because it's the first one here. Do a little bit of shopping. I mean, obviously you want to pick scales that are important to you, but you also want to be practical. If you really want to fill out this whatever 105 question survey and do all of this math, go for it. But there are also some other scales you could work with. So, perceived competence scale. This one is like legit 8 items. Okay? Scoring information. Your score is calculated by simply averaging your responses on the 4 items. So your perceived competence for learning, let's say, you answer all of your questions and you answer them all 2s, again, because I can't do basic math, so my brain can work with that. You get a score of 8, you divide by 4, you're taking the average. So your overall score is a 2. Because we averaged, you know that this is the lowest possible score you can get by averaging all of these answer choices. And you know that this will be the highest answer choice that you can get because you averaged all of these. So your answer for this would be, I have a 2 on a scale of 1 to 7 for perceived competence for learning. And you'll learn about what perceived competence for learning is in the description of the scales and in the description of the measure, okay? So this one might be something people might be more interested in because it's like literally 8 items. You have a scale here, perceived competence for diabetes. So, you know, if you have diabetes, work with that one. If you don't, work with this one. Another one to look at. Let's see. I just kind of picked a couple. Self-regulation questionnaire. Okay. There are a bunch of different kinds of self-regulation. This kind of talks to you about scoring. Much like the others, here we go, academic self-regulation. You'll go through all of these. They will get assigned a number value. And then, here you go. Very true is scored as of this, this of this, this of this, this of this. And then you see these. This means you're adding up the scores that you have for each of these items, and what you do then is you divide by the total number of questions. So for here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you would take the sum of all of these, divide by 9, and then you get your scale. And again, so for this one you had to actually look here for everything. You would know that your score here is a whatever, depending on what your average is, with a low of 1, or on a scale of 1 to 4. So then you can look on that scale of 1 to 4 and figure out where you lie, with 4 meaning you have a lot of external regulation, and a 1 meaning you have very little external regulation. And of course, this will tell you what that kind of stuff means. And then you can respond that way. Okay? Here's another one. Take us through a couple, like I said. Subjective vitality scales, scale description, telling you a little bit about it. The scales, here you go. Vitality scale has 7 items, and another 7 items. So, again, you add them all up and you divide. Yep, averaged with the other items. One thing to watch out for that pops up here and then pops up in another one that I'll get to. You want to be aware and you want to read these documents, okay, before you actually like start taking the measure, okay, because it'll kind of tell you how easy or hard scoring that scale will be, and you'll know how long that scale is. You want to watch out for anything asking you to reverse score something, okay? Don't worry about any scale that asks you to reverse score. Don't worry about it. I won't explain it to you. There are plenty of scales out there that are available on that website that do not require you to reverse score something, okay? So when you go to look for which 3 surveys you want to complete, obviously look for what interests you. Look for something easy. If you're kind of like, whatever, I just have to do both of my applied activities because I waited until the very end of the semester. And you want to make sure that it doesn't tell you to reverse score. If it tells you to reverse score, don't take the measure. This one recommends that you use 6 of these 7 items by omitting item number 2. So in this case, what you would do is just omit it. You don't have to worry about reverse scoring it. You actually could use this measure. And then, as it says here, averaging your score of the 6 items. So here, each of these answers would get a numerical value, and then you would average by dividing by 6 instead of by 7, because the scoring thing's telling you to omit basically number 2. So this one contains the phrase reverse score, but you don't actually have to worry about it because there's the option to take out in the question that they want you to reverse score. Another way to watch out for reverse scoring is you're scrolling through the document, you're reading, you're checking over anything. When you see this, the R in parentheses, that also means you have to reverse score an item. Ignore those as well because they're asking you to reverse score, okay? So here's kind of the recap of how we jive with this, okay? Do the first part, the self-determination theory applied activity, super easy, okay? Second half is all about the questionnaires. Go through the questionnaires. Figure out the ones that sound, number 1, interesting to you. Number 2, look short in length when you actually go to view documents. And 3, do not require you to reverse score, okay? And again, this requires you to actually look at the scale, right? Here's my music preferences and some videos and stuff. What is this one? Motivation. Here we go. And so it requires you to look through this document. Don't worry about the reliability, validity, citations. Learn about the scale, what it means, what the subscales mean if there are subscales. It'll tell you how to take it, how to score the items, and then you go through, you answer those items. And while you're looking, before you actually settle on the questionnaire, read the scoring information, okay? There's nothing saying you have to use something that has subscales, like this one does. There's nothing saying that you have to use something that does have subscales or doesn't have subscales. But while you're looking at this, know that what you're going to have to do is take the average of all of these. And then for your other subscale, take the average of all of these. And these are abbreviations, but they'll tell you what they mean as long as you read through all of like this. So, right, so you have to do a little bit of preparation with these questionnaires before you start taking them. All right? And then once you determine that, okay, yeah, this is doable for me, I'm okay scoring this, I'm okay with the length or whatever, then you can go ahead and take it. Remembering that if you have to average, okay, what averaging is doing is it's fitting your score within the range of possible scores. So, when you average and you want to compare your score, you know, to like a range, is it high, is it medium, is it low, I don't know, your low is always the lowest number possible, so a 1. Your high is always the highest number possible. So in this case, a 7. If it's on a scale of 1 to 5, the 1 would be your lowest and 5 would be your highest, and your score would range somewhere between 1 to 5. And then let me know whether you think that's low, medium, or middle, or high, and how you think that relates to you, okay? So, after getting through this, take a deep breath, go and check the questionnaires, okay? Look at those kind of 3 criteria, and give this some time, okay? I will be absolutely happy to answer any questions you might have about this portion of the applied activity. I will not be happy to answer questions about this portion of the applied activity the day before it's due. And that won't happen because I won't have time to respond to all of your questions. So start on this activity early. Make sure you look through those questionnaires. If you have any questions about how to score, if something's not clear to you, let me know, okay? Print up the questionnaire, bring it to class. I'll walk you through it, or we'll walk you through it on your laptop, or you can make an appointment with me and we'll make some office hours and talk about it, okay? But you need to give yourself some time for this portion of the assignment, okay? So be aware that that is a thing. So that is the rundown for Applied Activities Chapter 9, okay? Again, if you have questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them, as long as you don't send them to me like 2 days before this is due, because that's a little ridiculous. So that is that. And I will talk to you guys again on Monday with some more lecture material.